There was a lot to like from individual players against Melbourne. Let's look at my standouts. Before we jump into my standouts, the best way to support this channel is by subscribing, sharing it to a Collingwood supporter that you think might not have seen me before, and get them to hit the subscribe button. Buying some merch, the link is down below. It would mean the absolute world to me. But now let's get into my standouts for the game against the Demons. So there were definitely some guys that really stood out from the rest. I think it was a pretty good performance in the way an individual performance. I don't think anyone truly let us down or anything sort of like that. Where I'm going to be harsh on anyone, but there were a couple of things that I want to sort of touch on further down the video. But we'll start with my fifth best player for the game, and that's going to Jack Crisp. Now, Crispy, especially in that first half, he was absolutely everywhere. I love the run he was providing. The inside 50 is a little bit, especially in that first quarter, left a bit to be desired, but I thought he had a really good game. I think that was his 250th game in a row, which is just absolutely nuts to think about. We'll look at a bit of his stats. So 21 disposals, so not a super high disposal game, but he did most of his damage in that sort of first half. 400 meters gained, 9 contested possessions. What I did love about Jack Crisp's game was he had 7 tackles. There were a couple of players that had 7 tackles. He was equal highest with Ned Long for tackles in that whole game for Collingwood. So that's really good to see where he can impact with his legs, with the meters gained, and then he can get onto that defensive pressure as well. At number 4, I have Isaac Quaynor. Now, Q had 25 disposals, 500 meters gained. I think it was his best game for the entire season, probably for 2 seasons, really, because he had a really low 2024 by his standards, and I guess by our standards as well. These last 3 or 4 weeks, he's really come into his own. And at the end of the game, when he was getting interviewed by the Pies, he said that he hasn't really changed much about his game. And I don't think he has either. He's just getting a little bit more opportunity. I think it's just a confidence thing and a self-esteem thing now. And we're seeing him build gradually every single week, especially this 3 or 4 week block where he is coming into that 2022, 2023 queue that we know and love that got him close to an All-Australian jersey. I said he had 500 meters gained, 11 pressure acts. 9 of those pressure acts were in the defensive half. He had 7 rebounds from 50. So that was second most compared to Jeremy Howe in the team. So he's getting his running game going off half back, which we love. And I know Josh Daicos does a lot of that now, and Q's more of that small medium defender. And, his one-on-ones is so good and stuff like that. But I really loved what he's doing, and he's building very nicely. He's going to have a nice little buy, and he's building very nicely for the second half of the season. My third best player of the game was, of course, Scott Pendlebury. 29 disposals, and it wasn't even just about his disposals. He could have had 12 disposals, right? But one, it was his mature head and that experience that he brings, especially towards the end of the game where he takes that mark, he goes back, he kicks it to side bottom, he's directing traffic with like 5 minutes to go. He's doing everything that you want an on-field coach to do, because let's be honest, he's the on-field coach at Collingwood. Craig McRae is in the stands, not in the stands, on the bench. And Scott Pendlebury is the coach on the field. So he's doing everything that you want someone like Scott Pendlebury to do, especially in those dying minutes. And you could tell that was the biggest difference between Collingwood and Melbourne yesterday, where our experienced players, Jeremy Howe, Scott Pendlebury, still side bottom. These guys, they were taking, an extra 1 or 2 seconds to really compose themselves, give off their handball instead of just bombing it long. And then you look on the flip side and you see Petrarca, Oliver, Pickett, just, really good players, obviously really good players in grand scheme of things, but just not as much experience as our older guys, and they were sort of just blazing away and not taking time to give off that extra handball that could have helped Melbourne, win the game. So Scott Pendlebury did that. A few clearances as well, which you love. 3 clearances. You would have seen that one going around where he sells a candy to Petrarca. Petrarca breaks his ankles, gives it off to Bo, and Bo kicks a goal from 50-something meters out. So Scott Pendlebury is my third best player of the game. Now, I was tossing up between the second and first. Like, I'll give you the names, Jeremy Howe and Josh Daicos, right? It's hard because pretty much they're both equal first. I know Josh Daicos got 10 full coaches' votes. I know he won the Neil Danaher Trophy, and he had a fantastic game. 34 disposals, 500 plus meters gained, 7 score involvements, 2 clearances, the rebounds from 50, and he was just everywhere. You clamp on one Daicos who still had an okay game or a good game. He actually had a good game. You got to think about with Nick Daicos. Yes, he had that hard take. Still had 19 disposals, kicked a goal and some change. Had 8 clearances still, which was the most on the ground for us. But he also kept Ed Langdon to 4 touches. If you want to flip it, it's almost like Nick was tagging Ed because Ed, who is their best runner, Melbourne's best runner, and someone who would usually line up with Josh Daicos, was just taken out of the game. So I thought that was really good for us, and it was a win for us. Then you look at Jeremy Howe. He almost had 600 meters gained, 26 disposals, but it was his 9 rebounds from 50. It was his 14 intercept possessions. It was his intercept marks. I thought Jeremy had an absolutely fantastic game. Who do you put 2? Who do you put 2 and 1? If it's anything, it's 0.5 a difference. I know Josh Daicos was very damaging, but I'm going to have Josh Daicos at number 2, and I'm going to have Jeremy at number 1. I thought, we don't win that game without Jeremy Howe down back, without his composure. And again, it's those old, experienced heads winning the game for us. And I just think, one, he could have an All-Australian jersey, right? At least be in contention for the extended squad, because he is having a fantastic year. Had a couple of down games, but a fantastic year nonetheless. And I think it was Dwayne Russell on SEN, or one of the commentators on SEN, it probably wasn't even Dwayne Russell, said that the way Jeremy Howe is playing, he should have been worth 3 first-round picks if he was to get traded from Melbourne to Collingwood, like, what initially happened. We got Jeremy Howe at a steal. It was Ben Kennedy and a couple of picks here and there. So, fantastic for us. But I've got Jeremy Howe as my best player on the ground. Of course, some honourable mentions. Dan McStay comes back, kicks 2 goals. I thought Memory was really good as well. Our boy Uncle steals side bottom. He could have been in the top 5. It was either him or Jack Crisp, but I just liked Crisp's game, especially just that first half. I know Crisp, steal side bottom probably had a better second half, and Crisp had a better first half. But the way Crisp got us going in that first half, I thought worked really well for us, and that's why I sort of gave him the nod. But Unk, another goal from 50, like, come on, mate. Come on. He kicks 1 goal from 70 in the grand final, and then he's just popping him from 50 now, which is absolutely incredible. I thought Harry Perryman was good down back. Darcy Moore as well. I thought he stood up when we really needed him to. But like I said, there wasn't really anyone that had a super bad game. Will Hoskin-Elliott even had a really good game, when he came on as that sub. No one had a super, super, super bad game. There were a couple of players like, Will Hayes. I love what Will Hayes is going to do. I love that they were using him a lot. He maybe the emotion or the spotlight got to him a little bit. A couple of drop marks and a couple of poor decisions, but I'm not going to hold it on as second gamer at all. I thought he did well. Kicked his first goal, which is really, really nice. So that'll give him confidence. And I love what he is going to be. But I think he was just overawed a little bit. Ed Allen came off for Will Hoskin-Elliott. I don't think this was Ed's best game by a country mile in the last few weeks. It was the rising star last week. Had a fantastic game against Hawthorn and even against North Melbourne. I think he just lowered his colours a little bit. Again, I feel like, to me, from where I was sitting and where I was watching the game, I feel like it was just that defensive stuff that he just has to work on just a little bit. But what do I know? I'm not a coach. Like, I don't know what he's supposed to be doing. But just to me, it just looked like just a little bit, just to work on that defensive stuff. But other than that, it wasn't even a day for our forward. Like, Jamie Elliott kicked 1 goal. Brody Mychek kicked, what did Mychek kick? Like a goal, wasn't it? Just 1 goal, I think. And they didn't appear much, and it was just a little bit, it was the entries going inside 50. We were bombing it long, and They were intercept marking him and stuff like that. A little bit to tighten up, but these scrappy wins you have to get done if you're to go on and play finals and win a premiership, hopefully, like what we were doing in 2022 and 2023. But all in all, I thought it was a really good individual performance from the whole team. Everyone has their sort of flaws. Little things can be tightened up, but they are my standouts. Let me know your standouts down below. But until then, like, comment, subscribe, tell your family, tell your friends, tell your pets, and until next time, double shackers. I'll swoop you later.